Here is 50 plus quick-fire things to know about the DJI Mini 3 Pro. If you don't learn something new in this video, I will be shocked. Let's jump right in. So a lot of people find it difficult or finding it difficult to put the gimbal guard on the drone. It is quite hard to hold the gimbal in position when putting it on, but here is a top tip on how to do it. Put the gimbal facing straight up, slowly lower the gimbal guard down over the top of it, and you'll find this is a foolproof method of putting that gimbal guard on. When doing firmware updates and the drone is not flying in the air, it can get quite hot, so put it somewhere in the shade or maybe put it somewhere with a fan blowing on it. If you forgot your memory card and want to use the internal storage but it's full and you're out on location, how do you clear the internal storage? Go to the DJI Fly app, go to the camera tab, scroll down to storage, make sure internal storage is selected, and then press format. To stop the props moving about and potentially getting broken as you put your drone into your camera bag, make sure that the top props are pressed over the top body of the drone like this, and that the back ones are in between the two standoffs on the bottom of the drone. This way, when you move the drone around, the propellers will not move about and you won't potentially break one. If you want more security for your props, prop guards like this one from Skyry are available and they will hold your propellers even more securely in place. When turning the drone off, it will always default to normal flight mode no matter what your controller is set to. So if you have your controller set to sport mode, when you turn the drone on, it will be in normal mode until you change the flight mode back to normal and then back into sport mode or cine mode. Make sure to check this when you take off that the drone is in the same flight mode that it is set to on the controller. If you want to make money with your drone footage, then you should check out today's sponsor, Wirestock. Wirestock is a service that allows drone pilots to make money by selling their photos and videos as stock. Using Wirestock, you can upload your content to one location and they distribute it to all the major marketplaces so that you don't have to make multiple accounts on multiple websites. This is great because you have one account and can track everything in one location. They offer high royalty rates and discoverability, which is important as you want people to find your content. There are no fees when using Wirestock. They just take a 15% commission off every sale. They only make money when you do. So if using these clips you get great drone photos and videos, you can upload them to Wirestock quickly and start making a little side income. Big thank you to Wirestock for sponsoring this video. To get started, just head to the link in the description where you can create an account now. If you lose your drone and need to be able to find it, there is a Find My Drone mode. In Maps and under Find My Drone, when you press this, the drone will start making a beeping sound and the propellers will start pulsing to be able to help you find your drone. What micro SD cards should you use for your drone? Well, you need an ultra high speed 1 card with a class 3 or above. On screen are a list of recommended ones, so pause the video now and take a screenshot. Remember to update the home point when you're moving about. If the drone goes into return to home mode, it will go back to the home point that is set when the drone is first took off. If you're moving around on a boat on a lake, for example, that means that the drone will probably go back and land in the water. So make sure to go into the DJI Fly app settings and press update home point often if you're moving about. Set the auto return to home height higher than any obstacles or buildings around you, because this is the height the drone will rise up to when return to home kicks in. So it's important to make sure that this height is set above them obstacles and buildings so that the drone will fly over it as it returns the home back to you. There's no glass on the lens cap to protect the camera. So if you want an additional layer of glass to protect that camera, then I recommend the UV filter from Freewell. The obstacle avoiding sensors on the DJI Mini 3 Pro are absolutely excellent, but they will not recognize thin things such as power lines or thin branches. So if you're flying in areas where there's lots of them obstacles about, then you need to be very careful. Downward obstacle avoidance is always on. Something I noticed recently when flying low to the ground with obstacle avoidance turned off is that the drone was still rising up over obstacles. So the downward obstacle avoiding sensors are always on, even if obstacle avoidance is turned off. Them downward obstacle avoiding sensors will also cause bobbing up and down when flying low over water. I'm not sure why. It could be because of the translucency of the water or because it's got waves moving underneath it, but when you fly low over water, the drone will bob up and down. So if you want a smooth shot, simply raise the drone up and you won't get that bobbing motion. Don't take off in dusty or sandy areas. This is something I'm guilty of. I've done it before, and it can kick up sand, it can kick up dirt, and it can go in exposed areas of your drone, such as around the propellers. To get around this, you can buy one of the cheap landing pads off a website like Amazon, and then you simply put the landing pad down on top of the dusty area, and you won't get any of that kick up over and around your drone. If you don't want to put the drone down, then you can hand launch it. You can do this manually by pushing the joysticks downwards and inwards to start the propellers, and then hold up on the left stick if in stick mode 2 to ascend the drone out of your hand. Or you can simply put the drone in the palm of your hand and press and hold auto takeoff. Because the DJI Mini 3 Pro is under 250 grams, it is very regulation friendly. You will find that in most countries, sub 250 gram drones don't come under the same restrictions as heavier drones such as the DJI Mavic 3. To quick transfer to get the high quality videos and photos off your drone onto something like your phone, simply turn on the drone, go into the DJI Fly app with your phone. Remember, this doesn't work with the new RC controller. You need to have the DJI Fly app opened on your phone. You will see a notification appear in the bottom left of the app to do quick transfer. Press this, connect your drone, and then you can quickly get the high quality files off your drone and onto your phone for something like doing a quick mobile edit. If your drone is not flying left or right for some reason, you probably have disable sideways flight turned on. If obstacle avoidance mode is set to bypass, the disable sideways flight option becomes available, and if turned on, you will not be able to fly your drone left or right. A quick explanation of the different obstacle avoidance modes: when it's off, the drone will not do anything to stop itself flying into any obstacles it senses. In brake mode, the drone will come to a quick stop if it senses any obstacles. In bypass mode, the drone will try to fly around any obstacles it sees and continue on its path. If you want a different stick mode layout, you can actually change the stick modes in the DJI Fly app settings. In stick mode 2, for example, when you press up on the left stick, the drone will ascend, but in stick mode 3, when you press up on the left stick, the drone will fly forward. So you can pick a stick mode that is best suited to your muscle memory. Subject scanning is an option that, when turned on, instead of having to draw a box around the subject you want to track, the drone will automatically place a plus icon above subjects that it thinks are trackable. When you press this plus icon, the drone will automatically draw a box around that subject so that you can track them. This can be really handy if you're looking to track subjects quickly. Under advanced gimbal settings, you can change the smoothness and speed of things like the gimbal and the yawing motion of the drone. Here are my settings which I find give the smoothest motion. Feel free to pause this video now and screenshot these so that you can use these settings on your DJI Fly app settings. Also, in the DJI Fly app, you can customize what the C1 and C2 buttons do on the back of your RC controller. For example, I have the C1 button set to bring the gimbal up to the horizon or point it straight down, and I have the C2 button set to auto exposure lock. But you can change the C2 button to change between horizontal and vertical video modes, for example, and a range of other things in the DJI Fly app settings. If you want to know how many power cycles or charges your batteries have had, in this area in the DJI Fly app settings, with the battery in your drone and turned on, you can see exactly that. If you want maps on the RC controller, you need to connect to Wi-Fi or your mobile phone's hotspot. To do this, simply drag down on the top right of the screen, go to settings, go to Wi-Fi, and connect your phone. If you want a Mavic 3, great news, the new RC controller that comes with the Mini 3 now works with the Mavic 3. And to do this, you can simply press the connection button, swipe across to the Mavic 3, and then it will connect to your Mavic 3. If you want to record the screen of the RC controller, again you can do this by swiping down on the top right of the controller and pressing the record button, which is what the SD card in the bottom of the controller is for. You might have wondered why you'd put an SD card in there, is so you can store the screen recordings. The joysticks for the controller, when attaching them to the joystick peg bases, are really quite fiddly. If you drop these in an area where there's maybe a large amount of tall grass, you might find that they're very easy to lose. So I'd recommend either getting a spare pair or just being really careful with them in general. If you're out flying and the screen brightness is quite dim and you want to increase it, you can do this by again swiping down on the top right of the controller and sliding the screen brightness up. If you're worried about scratching the screen, you can get and install a screen protector, such as this one from Skyroot. This one's fantastic. You wouldn't even know it was on the screen, and it doesn't change the responsiveness of that screen at all. And it just means you get resistance to scratches, which is important when putting it in and out of a camera bag, for example. You just don't want to scratch that screen, so a screen protector is a good buy. If your controller can't find your drone, simply go to the connection guide, press the repair button, press and hold the button in the drone for 4 seconds until it starts beeping. Give it a few seconds and the controller should repair to your drone. There is an FPV mode available for the camera, so instead of in standard mode where the gimbal stays level to the horizon will actually bank left or right as you rotate the drone left or right to give this FPV or fixed wing feel. If you are manually focusing the camera and wonder what the icons mean, the mountains mean infinity focus and the little icon of a person means macro or close up. If you need help with focusing when using manual focus because it's quite hard to gauge the focus based on the screen, you can turn on focus peaking. This will add a red outline around everything that's in focus and help you nail that focus when using manual mode. If you need help framing, you can turn on grid lines. You have 3 different options and you can turn each of these on independently, and this will help you keep subjects centered and frame your shots better. Overexposure warning, when turned on, will overlay zebras on areas of the image that are overexposed so that you can dial that exposure back and make sure your image is exposed correctly. An even better way to check exposure is using the histogram. A really simple way to explain this is you want to make sure that most of the graph is in the center of that histogram. If it's crushed to the left side, you have an underexposed image, and if it's crushed to the right side, you have an overexposed image. So try to make sure most of that graph is spread across the center of the histogram. In auto mode, if you don't want the color temperature and exposure changing, then you'll want to lock your exposure. You can do this by tapping and then pressing and holding on the screen, or by pressing one of the function buttons on the back of the controller if you have auto exposure lock mapped to it. If you don't want to zoom by using the scroll wheel on the controller, you can actually zoom by pinching on the controller. Simply pinch and expand your fingers on the screen, or pinch your fingers back together to zoom in and out by touching the screen. If you want to move the gimbal, again by not using the scroll wheel, you can press and hold on the screen and then drag upwards to move the gimbal up, or downwards to move the gimbal down. When it comes to photo mode, I find the 48 megapixel mode is fantastic if you want large images for things like printing. But I found normal mode actually results in slightly sharper looking photos, and so this is the mode I use most of the time because I'm just posting my photos online. If you want motion blur in your videos, you want to adhere to the 180-degree rule. That is where your shutter speed should be twice your FPS. So if your frame rate is 25 FPS, then you want your shutter speed to be 1/50, for example. Or if your frame rate is 60 FPS, then you want your shutter speed to be 1/20. And this will give you motion blur, which will make your videos much more cinematic. Now, if it's a sunny day, then low shutter speeds will probably mean you have a very overexposed image. The way you get around this is by using ND filters, such as these ones from Freewell. This is basically like adding a pair of sunglasses in front of your camera and will reduce the amount of light getting into the camera sensor, meaning you can use them lower shutter speeds but still have a perfectly exposed image. When using higher ISOs, I've noticed that as well as introducing noise, which is expected, the image actually gets slightly softer at higher ISOs with the DJI Mini 3 Pro. If you're wanting to use manual white balance, but you're not exactly sure what the settings should be set to, I find that if you put it into auto mode and then quickly change it back to manual mode, the drone will have set it to what it thinks the correct white balance should be. Focus track and quick shots now work with vertical video mode since update 01000201. When using focus track, you can actually track buildings as well as subjects. Now, why would you want to use focus track on a building? Well, if you draw a box around a building, you can use point of interest mode and have the drone do an orbit around it for you. If you're tracking a subject in spotlight mode, you can actually still control the drone, but the drone will keep your subject in the center of the shot. This is great because it allows you to do advanced moves by yourself, maybe tracking yourself, and get really nice cinematic shots. You can do a dolly zoom or the vertical effect with your drone. To do this in camera, as you fly back away from a subject, zoom in the camera at the same time using the scroll wheel on the back of the controller. To get an even smoother vertical effect, it's best to do this in post. You can simply fly the drone forward towards a subject, and then in post, add a keyframe at the start of the video and set the scale to 150%, and add a keyframe at the end of the video when the drone is closest to your subject and set the scale to be 100%, and you'll get this really nice smooth dolly zoom or vertical effect. So there you have over 50 plus quickfire things you may not have known about the DJI Mini 3 Pro. Hopefully you have learned something new in this video. Was there anything I've missed, or was there something you've recently learned with the DJI Mini 3 Pro that you would like to share with others? Then why not put it in the comments down below. Now if you've liked this video and you've learned something new, please let me know by giving me a thumbs up and clicking that like button down below. And if you've just picked up a DJI Mini 3 Pro and want to know how to get better photos and more cinematic videos with this drone, then I have a ton of other content on my channel to help you level up your drone game. Make sure the subscribe button is checked, make sure the notification bell is ticked so you don't miss any of them upcoming videos. If you want to stick around and see a few more of them videos now, here's a few I personally recommend. I'll not keep you back any further. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you over there.